that also transferred back to an onshore flow and then back to an east wind event. We're kind of looking at those same conditions. So today on the fire, we had a very successful day. We had that transfer from offshore flow to onshore flow. I'm going to kind of turn so you'll be looking at my face, and if you can focus on the map. Down in Branch 1, Camarillo Heights, Camarillo Estates, there was no perimeter growth. Crews continued to work on perimeter control. Perimeter control has been kind of difficult because basically when you normally have a fire line kind of going direct with hand line tools and hoses, not driveways, orchards, open brush fields, houses. So the crews and hand crews are picking between all those different areas trying to connect the dots to make sure that perimeter is not going to grow. Also within the perimeter, we had engine companies actively mopping up all the damaged structures and any brush around the structures that weren't damaged. They spent a lot of time there, and it seems like the calls for service from yesterday to today dropped significantly, so the crews are doing good work. We also didn't have that offshore flow kind of making some of that ornamental brush be exposed, and so the crews were able to actively get a lot of the stuff put out. Going into Branch 5, so we'll say the Satakoy Somas area, no growth on that main body of fire at all. Crews continued to actively patrol and mop up in Division Gulf, Delta, and Alpha. I told you guys yesterday that Alpha and Zulu on that eastern edge was going to be our biggest pressure point for today when we had that return of onshore flow. Last night, the crews were very successful. They were able to get handline and dozer line connected basically from Stockton Road on the south side of that east end all the way to South Mountain Road on the north side of the east end. They also reinforced it with fixed wing retardant yesterday. And then last night we flew the mobile retardant base with our night flying helicopters, and they reinforced that line. So yesterday there was a lot of fire activity on there with that offshore flow. Today, there was no fire activity on that line. It looked really good and it held. So crews continued to monitor, patrol, and improve that line, and it was looking really good by the end of shift. The only activity, we have a small orchard, if you see drop point 6 just above the Division Alpha, that has a bunch of mulch piles. That was the only copters we flew today, was kind of helping open up some of those mulch piles, get some water in there and kind of mop that up so it's not going to affect any houses or any of the orchards in the area. As we work around South Mountain Road from the east side on the north side of the fire, Zulu, Whiskey, and Papa, the only activity we had was a little bit down by the Todd Road Jail, if you guys are familiar with it, in the Santa Clara River bottom. We did have a spot fire there yesterday. They have hose lines and crews engaged in there, and they're still working that, but when I was leaving the line today, there's some significant smoke coming out of there, just white smoke. It's all line, but crews need to continue to mop that up and be vigilant with it. The plan for tonight is to continue to, again, connecting the dots. We need to keep using these resources with this advantageous weather that we're having to get in there and make sure we're mopping everything up as 100% as we can, so we're not going to have any secondary starts. There's tons of islands of fuel. This fire burned, you can see how we call it fingery. There's tons of fingers that came down. So as that fire pushed through with that east wind, there's a lot of unburned islands of fuel. And so it's important for those crews to get in there, engage those fuels, cut those fuels out, mop them up 100%, and that's what they've been doing for the last 48 hours. We are expecting a transition of a possible another moderate northeast wind event coming in next week, and so we really want to make sure that this perimeter and all the interior islands of unburned fuel are secure. That's the update. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay, good evening. My name is Ryan Walbrin. I'm the incident meteorologist. I work with the National Weather Service. So just a few basic points. At 11 o'clock this morning, that particularly dangerous red flag warning was allowed to expire. When it expired, we saw the return of the westerly or onshore winds. You heard Nick, the operations section chief, use that terminology of onshore and offshore. For the residents out there, if you think about an onshore wind, that means westerly or from the ocean, which generally means a more moist or higher humidity air mass. And when we use the term offshore, that's a dry wind blowing from the land to the sea. So as we move forward in time now, tomorrow for Saturday, what we'll see is really light winds in the morning, and then we'll get that westerly onshore wind. Usually that would bring with it higher humidity. This Santa Ana was so strong that it kind of blew that dry air well offshore. So even though we're going to go onshore or westerly tomorrow, we still expect humidity values to be very low, roughly in that 15 to 20% range. In terms of fire weather, we always watch wind, we always watch humidity because it impacts fuel moistures. So we do expect conditions to be dry again tomorrow, high temperatures really in the mid-70s or so, but we're just not too concerned about the winds because the speeds are going to continue to be light, perhaps sustained around 10 miles an hour with some afternoon gusts 15 to 20 Obviously, that's much lighter than what we saw during the red flag event. And then as we go through the end of the weekend into Sunday, I expect similar conditions. If anything, just a few degrees of cooling on Sunday and a slight uptick in the humidity. So that's a favorable element. So the key thing through the weekend is lighter winds. No concerns for any red flag events. We did talk about, as we head towards Monday, Veterans Day, we are watching an incoming weather system. Right now that would reach Northern California during the day and kind of approach this region Monday night. I think for the most part at this time, again, that's still 3 to 4 days out, what it's going to do is bring higher humidity, so that's favorable for the fire environment, and the more onshore winds. Now, when we get behind that later into Tuesday, you heard the reference to some potential more moderate northerly or offshore winds. At this time, I would say it's a very different setup than what we just went through, so no concerns for any type of a PDS red flag or anything like that. Kind of a more seasonable, kind of northerly offshore wind event. I think this one would accompany cooler temperatures and higher humidity. So that's still several days out. We'll have to continue to watch it. We'll be looking, hoping to get some rain in the forecast, but right now that doesn't look too optimistic at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gene Potke. I'm one of the damage inspection managers for the mountain incident. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about the damage inspection process and what the teams are doing out there in the field. Our teams work in pairs, and their goal is to visit every property that is within the fire footprint and 300 feet outside of the fire perimeter to inspect every building for damage caused by the fire. So they will be collecting structures that are destroyed, damaged, and not damaged. And that involves doing a full 360-degree walk around every structure to look for that damage. That includes collecting features about the structure, whether it's roof features, window features. They also are taking a picture of the structure that'll be attached to that record. And then that data will then be filtered through myself and the other damage inspection managers that are here at the incident base to ensure that it's been validated and that it's correct before release. And that is our process. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ventura County Sheriff Jim Freihoff. I just want to clarify for the community that was watching the initial presentation, when the fire chief was talking about Division Alpha, Zulu, Whiskey on the map, there's a Division A, that's Alpha, Z, Zebra, etc. Just in case you're trying to remember what he was referring to on the map, those are the areas he was talking about. So as we come together tonight, I want to start by expressing my deep concern and commitment to each of you, and as this community is healing from this fire, and that we're preparing to get repopulated. This is the third night of the mountain fire. It seems like a lot longer than that, but this is only the third night. I want our community to know that we are here for you all. We see the impact the fire has had on our community, our family, and friends. I would like to see everybody get repopulated as soon as possible. Please bear with us as this process takes time. It's incredibly important that we are safe before we get you back into the area, not only with downed power lines, with our first responders that are out there, open gas lines, etc. So far, we've been able to repopulate 3,500 homes. However, there are still 2,000 homes that are not repopulated. Also, Highway 118 still remains closed. Part of the reason the road is closed, although you may not see fire, there is fire on the backside of those hills. The undersheriff and I got a chance to fly and see where that fire is actively burning near Grimes Canyon now, and we've been asked to continue to keep that road closed. If we try to shrink it, it takes a lot more resources to keep the individual fingers closed, because then we'd have to close Grimes, Sand Canyon, Balcom, etc., all the way down the 118, which takes way more personnel than blocking off the ends. So bear with us. We're hoping to have the 118 freeway open by tomorrow. When you look at the 2,000 structures that have not been repopulated, there are some areas where there is intense damage. They are going to be closed down a little bit longer. So on vcemergency.com, we're going to have a map that'll have an overlay. Not right now, it'll be about tomorrow. That'll show the significant delay for those where we had a lot of damage. Environmental health is going to need to go into those areas to make sure that it's safe to repopulate the neighbors that are next to it. So we want to be extra cautious, and there'll be some additional instructions. You'll be able to click on a link on vcemergency.com that will tell you exactly what steps they're going to be taking. For those that are severely affected, we know we're going to be closed a little bit longer. It could be a few extra days. We're hoping to be able to repopulate about half of those 2,000 tomorrow or Sunday. As part of our standard precautions, we're going to be deploying cadaver dogs in those areas where the houses are burnt all the way down. We don't have any outstanding missing persons, but this is a standard procedure just to see if there's any remains that were otherwise would not be detectable. In addition, we're going to be diligently working with our community partners and to create a local assistance center. This is still further down the road, about 30 days out from now, where our county will operate a local assistance center for people to get documents that they may have lost, their driver's license, their birth certificate, finding out what building needs they're going to have. They'll have planners from the county that will show them exactly what they're going to need to be able to start the rebuilding process. And lastly, I know this is hard. I know you're all tired. We're going to make this through this together. Please bear with us. Thank you for continued cooperation. We appreciate you.
Good evening. My name is Barry Parker. I'm one of the Mountain Incident Commanders, along with my partner, Todd Hopkins from CAL FIRE. We definitely appreciate your patience. I know that the last few days have definitely been tremendously trying on this community, a very close-knit community that expects the highest from its local government and from its sheriff's department and from its fire department. But what I want to touch on for just a minute is the master mutual aid system that the fire service uses. We're able to get hundreds of firefighters on scene within an hour or two, and it really makes a difference. So we are tremendously happy that we now have a large contingency of firefighters that are on scene, but in those early phases, we really rely on relationships through the master mutual system. It's a lot of iron to put on the road when you have a few hundred fire trucks, water tenders, bulldozers, hand crews, and we expect them to respond immediately, rapidly to support our community. We know it's been tough. We still have a couple days ahead of us, but just understand that the public safety is our main priority. We are doing everything that we can to get people back to a sense of normalcy. We want to put the land back to the way it was. We want to support the rebuilding, the repopulation, but in order to do that, we need to be safe and we need to do it effectively by making sure the basics are there before people go back home: water, electricity, and power. So know that your fire departments are working extremely hard around the clock to make this happen. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Dustin Gardner, County Fire Chief. I'm going to start out today and keep my message simple, and that's one of gratitude. It's one of gratitude for everybody here that's supporting this incident. Like the sheriff said, we're 3 days into this. If you think of what this looked like 48 hours ago, the first 24 hours of this was a significant extreme firefight. I am so grateful for the responders here the first day that were engaged in this, that brought this calm to where we're at today. For our partners that responded to help support this, for our team that's here to help run this, we've been able to bring calm. As you heard from the operations chief, on the map you saw, the fire has laid down. We had no external or lateral movement today. That is fantastic. For our residents in the East County, you're going to see our wind shift, and one concern that brings is as the wind shifts, the smoke is going to shift. So you're going to start to see and smell smoke. Don't be alarmed. We feel comfortable with where the mountain incident is. The mountain fire, because of all the good work that's been done, is going to be within its footprint. So if you see smoke, if you smell smoke, you're going to see ash, it's okay. The winds are going to shift, the smoke is going to shift, and it's going to change. If you see fire, if you see a large building fire, obviously react and call 911, let us know, but just know drift smoke is going to happen. It's going to be in the valleys and it's going to move to the east, so don't be alarmed. Your crews did a fantastic job. Our mutual aid system worked. Our elected officials, our governor, everybody that was here to support the system is bringing resolve to the fire. So for that, I am grateful. and want to say thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm now going to ask all of our members to come up on stage and be available for any questions that you have. Absolutely.
No, our inspection teams have just gotten on the ground this late afternoon. So what data they have collected, it is being verified and scrubbed tonight. So I don't have any numbers to report previous to that because we just got here today. I have not validated those numbers. Those are numbers that were generated by the Sheriff's Office and not the team that I'm managing right now. But it is our goal to get to that point to cover, as I said earlier, every property that is within the fire footprint and that 300 foot outside is to do a walk around every structure to determine its status.
Do we have any other questions? Great question, thank you. We do not have anybody on our panel from the water agency. So what we have been doing is asking people to just refer to vcemergency.com for any updates, but unfortunately we don't have anybody here that can speak to that question. Thank you. Other questions?
They announced that the first meeting will probably be about 30 days from the community. Will the end meeting before that, interim meeting, 30-day meeting would be for how to get permits and all that stuff? Is there any other community meeting planned before 30 days?
Great question, thank you. At this time, we do not have any other community meetings planned. If other community meetings are scheduled and planned, we will make sure to make those announcements. Thank you. Any other questions?
Okay, actually, I just wanted to clarify the question before, if I could go back, about the community meetings. So there will be community meetings offered through the Ventura County Sheriff's Department, and they are, from what I'm understanding, we are going to have a community meeting where people will be able to get information from us, which will help them go in a certain direction. And I know that that's being put together by the CAL FIRE Incident Management Team. So we are moving in that direction to make sure that when we are setting up for the Repop, that people know where to go and who to talk to. We want to streamline the process and make it easier. I don't have an exact answer. I'm going to bring up the sheriff to answer your question.
As of right now, when we start that local area committee meeting, it'll be at least 30 days from now, probably right around 30 days from now. If there's an opportunity to do it sooner than that, that'll be posted on VC Emergency. But right now we're looking at about 30 days, but we will make sure that that's put on VC Emergency as well. And if there's any other community meetings that we're going to schedule, we'll make sure that we put down all of that on VC Emergency. Right, but there's nothing else scheduled at this time. Thank you, Assembly Member.
Okay, to come back to the second question about water usage. So understand, in the fire service, we plan on heavy water usage, sometimes by the public, sometimes by damage. So with that being said, we bring in water tenders that hold upwards of 4,000 gallons apiece. We bring in as much water to the fight as we can. We use alternative methods to ship the water around the incident. So for firefighting purposes, we had adequate water.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions that we can answer for you? Absolutely. So we are at 20,630 acres and 14% containment on the fire. Thank you. Any other questions?
I've seen some conflicting
As it stands right now, I don't have that information on me. I will connect with you after, and we'll make sure to connect with you on that. I'll follow up with you after and make sure we get that information for you. Thank you. One last question from anyone? Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate all of you being here. Our next press conference will be scheduled for tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the same location. I'd like to encourage all residents of Ventura County and beyond to make sure to follow us at vcemergency.com for the latest information, updates on the fire and on evacuation orders. And also to go to vcfd.org where you can find all